The Year to There podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Year to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. I am your host, Phil Gramlich, and each and every week I will bring you a different Walt Disney World word and then give you some background, some tips, hints, tricks, ideas, thoughts. I could go on forever about that word. And before I get going with the word of the week this week, I wanted just to reach out and say thank you. Thank you so much for listening each and every week. I mean, if this is your first week listening or you're listening to the 132nd episode or whatever I've done, thank you so much for listening. I've gone around the alphabet twice, so this is my third A word. So I've done 52 words of the week so far. So that's a lot of these. That's a year's worth of word of the week episodes. So thank you for listening each and every week. It's greatly appreciated. And I just wanted to make sure you knew that each and every time you hit the download button or you hit record, I am so thankful for that. All right, so let's move on. Now that we got all that sappy stuff out of the way, this week's word of the week is, as I said, brought to you by the letter A. A for abandoned. Yeah, this week I wanted to talk all about our favorite empty spaces in Walt Disney World. Over the years, Disney has closed certain attractions that we loved. They've closed restaurants and other things. I wanted to talk about those. And in particular, those restaurants and those attractions and places that have been closed are still standing, but have not yet reopened and maybe never will reopen. And I'm going to do a few. I'm not going to do all of them. I could be here for an hour, and I don't want to do that because these are supposed to be around 15-minute episodes. So let's get started with the first one on my list, and that is the dock for the old Mike Fink keelboat attraction in Disney's Magic Kingdom. I've actually done a word of the week with the letter K for keel based on the Mike Fink keelboats in Magic Kingdom. But I don't know if I went in depth into the dock that is still sitting there, still standing there over by the Haunted Mansion in Liberty Square. So the Mike Fink keelboats I guess they were an opening day attraction. Well, it's one attraction, right? So it has to be the keelboats was. It just doesn't sound right. I don't know. If you know English better than I do, tell me, please. Believe it or not, English is my first language. I do ask you guys for help sometimes. And once in a while, I'll even hear back from someone who's like, hey, you messed that one up. Fix it. But it's fun. So anyway, the Mike Fink keelboats did open with the Magic Kingdom on October 1st, 1971. The two keelboats, the Gully Wumper and the Bertha May, would take you back and forth from that dock over to Tom Sawyer Island. In 2001, the Mike Fink keelboats were closed and the dock was kind of just left there abandoned. It still sits there. It still has the bars, the lines from the queue inside. If you were on the Liberty Square riverboat or if you're over in Tom Sawyer Island, you could take a really good picture of the dock. Still there, sadly. It's been maintained. It's not falling apart. It's painted. It looks nice. But it is still not being used. It is still one of those abandoned places in Walt Disney World. And I'm going to do this. If you have an idea, if you have an Imagineering concept for what you would put in these abandoned places, that's going to be the question on this week's Facebook post for this episode of the show. If you were an Imagineer, what would you put in that spot? What would you build or what would you place at the dock for the Mike Fink keelboats? Okay, and moving on, I'm going to move over to Epcot and the Imagination Pavilion. Now, as many of us know, the upstairs of the Imagination Pavilion used to be the home to Imageworks. The Imageworks attraction, or attractions, I guess, were able to be experienced from 1982, which was Epcot's opening year, all the way up until 1998 when the original Journey into Imagination attraction was closed and the Imageworks area upstairs was closed right along with it. Now, when the new Journey into Imagination version 2 attraction opened, Imageworks stayed closed. And there was one part of Imageworks that in particular I wanted to talk about. See, recently in the last year, Disney has reopened that area upstairs as a DVC lounge. So the big open glass pavilion part, the second floor of the old Imageworks attraction, now houses DVC members who want to take a break from the park. But that's not the entire area that was once available to those who wanted to see Imageworks. As a matter of fact, there was a whole section that is not available now for DVC members to walk through. One of those walled-off spaces was the Rainbow Corridor. This was this really cool tunnel. It was very 80s, but very popular, that you could walk through. It was all different rainbow lights above this archway above your head, and you would walk through, and you would be assigned a color, and that color would follow you throughout the corridor. It was really, really cool. And at least up until 2014, when some illegal, basically, urban explorers went upstairs to film themselves in the old Imageworks exploring the area, that rainbow corridor was still there. And I believe it's probably still there now. But please do not go upstairs and check. Please don't go up to the DVC lounge and try to sneak into the old areas. All that I know is, and I do not work at Epcot, nor am I affiliated with anyone who works at that pavilion, but all that I know is that the rumor is that that area is sealed up, but the Rainbow Corridor is still there and would probably still work today. So if you have an idea for what you would like to see in that area, in the old corridor, please let me know. All right, staying in Epcot, I want to move over to the very sad, very forgotten pavilion that is the Wonders of Life Pavilion. Now, with all of these changes that are coming to Epcot that were confirmed at the D23 Expo in 2017, there was still nothing announced about the old Wonders of Life Pavilion. The Wonders of Life Pavilion was all about life, body, health, and fitness, and it opened in 1989 and ultimately closed in 2007. That pavilion housed attractions like Cranium Command and Body Wars, and it's a big chunk of real estate back there. I mean, there aren't any signs for it any longer, but you can find it. It's not very difficult to find. And it's huge. It's a really big pavilion that's now only used for special events like the International Food and Wine Festival and the Epcot Flower and Garden Festival. So for pretty much the last 10 years, it's not used for more than half the year. It sadly sits there with its gold roof beckoning us to come inside, but sadly we can't. We can no longer experience Body Wars. We can no longer check out Cranium Command. So it's one of those sad spaces that I really, personally, I wish something happens to that pavilion with the entire Epcot makeover. Now, speaking of a deserted place and an abandoned place, you couldn't talk about these types of places in Walt Disney World without talking about one of the most famous or infamous ones, and that is Discovery Island. Now, Discovery Island is a pretty sizable chunk of land out in Bay Lake that the Disney company purchased in 1965. Now, this isn't a Disney creation. This is an actual island that was lived on and inhabited from at least the early 1900s. From the early 1900s into the 1930s, it was known as Raz Island. In the 1930s, it was purchased by a gentleman named Delmar Radio Nick Nicholson. Radio Nick purchased the island for $800 and changed the name of it to Idle Bay Isle. He actually lived there for 20 years with his wife and his pet Crane. I'm assuming that's Crane the bird, not the inanimate object. He later sold it and it was renamed Riles Island and used as a hunting retreat Until, of course, Disney bought the island in 1965 as a part of the Florida Project. Now, Disney reopened the island as Treasure Island in 1974, which was a place that you would go to observe wildlife. Later on, it was accredited as a zoological park and renamed Discovery Island. And it officially closed in 1999 once all the animals from the island were moved over to the brand new park, Disney's Animal Kingdom. Now, since the island was officially closed, there have been ideas and thoughts from the Disney company on what to do with it. Disney even entered the planning stages of turning it into a Mist Island. If you remember Mist, it was a video game, I believe in the 90s. It was like a mystery video game. That never actually got past the original planning stages, and the island has sat empty ever since. There have been several rumors over the years. One of the most popular rumors was that Disney would turn the island into a Lost experience that was based on the hit 2000s TV show Lost on ABC, which, by the way, I would have been all for. Oh man, I really wish they would have done that. I don't know if they could still do it now I don't think Lost has any kind of lasting, huge, long fan base. But if you ask me and it was up to me, I would definitely do a Lost experience over there. I know I have to move into this century, but still, it would be pretty cool. You can still see Discovery Island from Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground, as well as from the Contemporary, or you can see it from a lot of the boats that will drive around the island when you're headed to the Magic Kingdom. Another disclaimer, do not do what people of YouTube have done. Stay on your boat. Do not sneak off at night and go over to the island. It is dangerous. It hasn't been inhabited. It hasn't been worked on for years and years and years. So please don't be an urban explorer. That's not a very safe idea. Okay, moving on to the last place. And of course, it is the most famous one on the list here. And it actually can be seen from right around Discovery Island. And that is Disney's abandoned original water park, River Country. Now, this park opened on June 20th, 1976. It was accessible over at Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campgrounds. And I think this one is the one on this list that the most people kind of wish would come back. Or at least they wish something would be done with that land instead of it sitting there abandoned as it has been. Now, the water park had several attractions, and I'm going to list them here for you now. They were the Upstream Plunge, which was the big clean water pool, Slippery Slide Falls, Kitty Cove, a Barrel Bridge, Whitewater Rapids, Bay Cove, which had a boom swing, a cable ride, and a tire swing, Hoop and Holler Hollow, Bay Bridge, Indian Springs, Cypress Point Nature Trail, pony rides, and the Mercury Water Mouse Rental. So what happened to River Country, you may say? Why isn't it still open today? Well, in 1989, Disney opened Typhoon Lagoon. Typhoon Lagoon had much more parking. It was a much larger area, more slides, new amenities, restaurants, and more. And then Blizzard Beach opened in 1995, which had more of the same, basically, that Typhoon Lagoon had. So after the summer of 2001, or at least the hot season of 2001 that may have lasted well into November, Walt Disney World closed River Country as it did each year since those two other parks had opened. In April of 2002, the Orlando Sentinel reported that River Country may never again open. And in fact, that is exactly what happened. And it was not until 2005 that the Disney company officially announced that River Country would never reopen. So unfortunately, instead of tearing it down or tearing it out, River Country still remains. It has been left kind of abandoned and falling apart for the last 15, 16 years. It's also been a constant source of trespassers onto that area and into that old park. If you do a quick search on YouTube, again, you will find probably dozens of videos of people who have snuck into River Country either during the day or at night. Again, I have to say, please never do that. It's very, very dangerous, especially since most of the old slides and the infrastructure and the buildings are basically crumbling and falling apart. If you want to see it, if you want to know what it looks like now, just go on YouTube or do a Google search, and there are images and videos out there for you to see. In August of 2016, Disney did announce that they would drain and fill the upstream plunge pool. But unfortunately, like Discovery Island and the other places I had mentioned on this list, there is no current plan to tear down any more of River Country. So as far as I know, that is going to sit and rot, at least for the time being. So my question to you is, what would you put over in the area where River Country is now? There's a lot of room. It's a big area. There's all kinds of stuff that you could do with it. So you tell me, what is your dream idea? What is your blue sky imagineering idea for the area that used to be River Country? And that is going to do it for this week's Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. As always, thank you so much for listening. It is, as always, again, greatly appreciated. I said as always twice, but I'm going to leave it in there because, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm just trying to get by on this show. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. And if you did enjoy the show, I have one quick favor to ask. Please go to eartotheretravel.com/iTunes. There you can subscribe to the show, you can rate the show, you can review the show. Those subscriptions, those ratings, those reviews, the more people that listen to the show, that really helps me out. So if you enjoyed the show and you haven't yet done that, please head over to eartotheretravel.com/iTunes and subscribe to rate and review the show. You are awesome. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much in advance for doing that. Okay, just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There podcast each and every Monday morning, as well as a new episode of the Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week, each and every Wednesday morning. So until next time, thank you again so much for listening. Have a phenomenal week. Bye-bye.